today's session. Again, if you please use the chat function, I'm just going to let you know where in the world I'm joining from. So it is bright and breezy here in Ireland. Brett is in East Coast US, I believe. So, we're representing the US as well today, which is phenomenal. And today's session is how you, as CX professionals, can learn from some of the top healthcare insurers. And really, we're trying to think about this idea of monetizing member experience, thinking about the revenue at risk. And we have such a wonderful guest to share his expertise with us. So, um, Brett is a really good friend. I say, Brett, you're more connected than AT&T. You're the most networked person I know. A great friend. We've been chatting and getting to know each other, I would say, for the last year, which is phenomenal. Absolutely top-notch guy. You have 20 years experience leading award-winning customer and patient experience at some of the largest healthcare organizations in the world. That would be CVS Health, for those that don't know. And I think what's pretty amazing and the actionable insights you're going to get from Brett today is that he's got this decades of experience and he's going to be sharing his actionable strategies tested across 1.4 million patients. But get this, Brett's been really key as part of the CX transformation, overseeing 100 million in EBITDA impact while optimizing the patient experience for 1.4 million. And Brett, why don't you introduce us? Tell us what you're doing today. You've transitioned as a key executive for CVS. You're now with this wonderful organization. Why don't you chat us through your what you're doing as Vice President of Healthcare Experience Engineering at your current organization? So you're very welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the kind words, Chris. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, so after 2 decades with CVS, where I ran patient experience, strategy, client retention programs, and now I'm the vice president of healthcare with Ciclum. And Ciclum is an amazing company, global company, 14 different countries, doing a really cutting edge AI automation data work. And my role is to lead US healthcare. So I help pharmacies and payers and providers look at the problems that they have and how can they solve them using technology. We build a lot of custom solutions, we help implement. It's a lot of really cutting edge work that we do. So happy to
Super.
be here.
Excellent. And I believe that experience is very, very pertinent to today's conversation. We're going to be using a couple of nice analogies that allow people to ease their way into this idea of transformation as well. So really our goal, and I think is threefold. So if you haven't started your customer employee centricity journey, obviously patient experience, customer experience, employee experience, interchangeable. Today's actionable insights will give you a kickstart. If you haven't, don't worry. Today is going to give you a turbo boost to empower you to make a difference. And if you stay to the end, you will get a present. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of start with this, I suppose, quite damning graph provided by the wonderful Paul Long that showed us how while healthcare insurance has gone up, patient outcomes have gone down. Does that really summarize the core challenge faced by organizations, that they need to flip this to revenue and customer experience going up, revenue going up? So this is one of the key challenges, right, Brett?
Absolutely. Yeah. Costs will just continue to rise and outcomes become more and more important with value-based care and all the other opportunities out there.
Super. And I think where we were just chatting in prep, we were chatting about, the consumerization of software. So all of these amazing technology companies like Uber and the others have really set the scene for what we expect, even of healthcare companies. And we both have young children that really enjoy Domino's. So we were laughing about this analogy of, if you can order a pizza and watch it delivered to your address, why can you not do that with your medication? I think we're both I dare say ham and pineapple lovers, Brett, or is that a dirty word in your house? Maybe you'd allow us to enter this analogy here nicely better than me.
Yeah. No, it's a great analogy right there. The transparency piece is what is traditionally lacking in healthcare. You get a bill, you don't know why, you don't know where your medication is, you don't know what the prior authorization status is. There's a lot of different problems. And this is a good example
I
right
have to
there.
laugh because this is exactly the experience that I go
Yeah.
through every time you order. So it's when the technology actually delivers an experience, and who knew it can actually go to your phone. So it's there where you can actually order, track, and watch. How simple, I suppose. Pizza making and delivery to multiple households, not an easy feat in itself, Brett. So if Domino's can get it right, why can't our healthcare insurance companies get it right? That seems to be one of the key challenges. I love the analogy that you provided as well, that most healthcare insurance companies are actually cruise ships. Wonderful luxury, delivering these great experiences, but really hard to turn around. And with AI, we need to shift to become the speedboat of experience. So maybe that's a nice way to enter our discussion here.
Great way. Wow, nice job listening to what I say and somehow finding juice for it. It's fantastic. It's a great analogy right there. And I think this speedboat example is so much opportunity. There's so many high ROI ways to make profitable CX programs, and some companies are doing it really, really well.
Yeah, I suppose, Brett, you've had, decades of experience where digital transformation was obviously the big buzzword, right? But it's sometimes hard to achieve. But AI is now offering this new promise where we can suddenly, go super, super fast. Is that one of your key observations?
Yeah, absolutely. You may want to take that picture off the screen, by the way. It's like
Yes.
it's there. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so much technology. Just think about 2 years ago, we didn't even know what some of these words were. What's Chat GPT? What is all this? And now all of a sudden it's what you use every single day. Technology has just grown exponentially. And really the cultures and the budgets, haven't really kept up. And some are doing it really well and they're really blasting forward.
Superb. So this is really the meat of the conversation, Brett. So I'm going to take you through the analysis. We've done 17,958 voices of feedback from nearly, 20 odd healthcare insurance companies, brands that you'll be familiar with as well. So I'm going to take you through that. To do that, I think you've been working in CX, Brett, for a long time. This idea of, listen, distill, and act is something that will definitely resonate with you. Are you saying that there's a lot of listening done, but distill and action is where it falls down? Is that your experience and observation?
Yeah, yeah. There's for sure. We say that we listen, so certainly people do surveys. I think there's a lot more ways that we can listen. Your company does a fantastic job with that. And then turning it into ROI, turning it into actionable insights, so much opportunity.
Super. So I think our discussion today is going to really focus on this distillation. How can you create the prioritization for change and then moving that forward to action? So I'm going to just show you through the methodology that we use to be able to analyze all of these various feedback, and then we're going to take you through a quick snapshot, and then we've got five key takeaways from Brett just to think about how can we move from a more reactive to a proactive footing. So just by way of context, Adobe Board is helping, and I think this is the broader picture, that 83% of CX initiatives can't connect the prioritization of what they're doing to bottom line impact. Is this where technology, ultimately can help, but is in a lot of cases holding people back because they're focusing on that first stage of the listen, Brett?
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, this happens in almost every company. I think a lot of times we look at CX as a line item on the budget. And if we need to lower expenses, oh, this is CX, right? It's like rent. But if we look at it instead of like renting a house, you think of it as like, I'm investing in property, I'm buying this house. Building a good CX program and really understanding what it's telling you to do something about it, that's a true competitive advantage just waiting to happen.
And I suppose, Brett, the key thing is you've been part of those discussions at the most senior level. When you turn the CX program into revenue prioritization, is that where you've seen the conversation shift to more proactive leaning in and a better connection from senior level executives?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Tying finance to it is it's a secret sauce. It's not exactly easy to do. Everybody's got numbers. If you ask how much does it cost to retain somebody, how much does it cost to have a happy customer versus an upset customer, you're going to get various numbers. Being able to actually put dollars to that, then you can calculate your return on the investment, and they're generally very high return on investment to invest in a good CX.
Super. And I suppose like a lot of the discussion is focused on NPS spread, and you'll be, the NPS, OSAT, CSAT, whatever it is, SAT,
Yeah.
is the time to kind of upgrade the framework to now focus on this churn, which is the big gaping challenge for CX professionals.
Yeah. In a way, focusing on and Net Promoter Score or OSAT, it can kind of get in the way. That number then becomes the target. Oh, good, we're a 70. Oh, good, we're an 80. But like you're losing revenue and you're losing clients, they're not jiving together. So being able to take what does this actually mean? What do we need to do about it? And how does that translate into dollars? That's the real key part.
Superb. So we're going to go into the core insights, but before we do that, I'm going to show you exactly what we did. So at Adobe Board, we were able to analyze 1,000 comments in under 30 seconds, and our predictive AI can allow you to detect a theme. So it'll tell you in this example, people hate waiting in Starbucks queues, they want to use a mobile app. We can see that people aren't happy that the mobile app isn't great, and certainly you'd use Brett's company to go fix that, right? But the business case is if I fix this, we will drive NPS by 2%. And by the way, that will protect revenue risk by X million. So this idea of going to speed the insight and being able to identify what did we learn, what needs to be improved, what are our customers actually saying about it, and then what's the implications so you can actually start to put some dollars and values there. So we're going to take a look at some not Starbucks but some healthcare companies, this just to give you an idea of before we go into the actual healthcare index what that looks like. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a sense of the discussion so far. We're going to now very quickly go into the insights, and then we'll take a step back and think through, how we got there with some reflections from Brett. So just take a second just to navigate to the discussion screen, and then we'll take it from there. So let me just switch screens, and then we're in good shape to go. At any point, please ask questions. Really important that you put your own reflection or comments as well. So I think to Brett's point, it really starts at this idea of revenue at risk. So we've taken nearly 18,000 reviews. The combined impact is nearly 21 million US customers that we've covered off. On average, average US consumers spend about $8,000 a year on their insurance, and on average is taking around $790 to acquire. That's kind of broad brush. Hopefully, it don't offend anyone from any insurance companies that say, "Well, actually, we're a bit cheaper than $8,000." But the idea here is, and you see this is a massive number because we've covered off, the majority of the US health companies. But the idea is it's a calculator. So you can see as I start to adapt that, this will change. So you can see as I start to change this will allow you to change and reflect that. So that's just to show you how, when you start seeing these big numbers being thrown at you, this is how we arrived at that. So all the data was actually taken from online reviews. That was simply just drag and drop into our system. We were able to analyze 1,000 comments in under 30 seconds. So that was done fairly seamlessly. Now we've combined those 17 companies, and you can see there's various performance, American Air, United American, all of these various organizations into one index. And in doing so, we have created a storyteller report. So what I've done is show you what the answer is. So we're going to discuss with Brett, get his perspective on some of these key insights, give you a did you know, an implication for that, and then some of the examples of the customer story. At a top line, those 20 US healthcare companies, the revenue at risk is a staggering $352 billion. But that's no big surprise, because some of these companies are billion-dollar companies. So it's in that context. So what I've done is just identified these 6 key drivers: better transparency on insurance claims, acknowledging insurance prescription struggles, improving communications for on hold and claim delays, tackle ineffective customer service. We're going to dive into what that actually means, triage urgent help requests, and then address poorly functioning websites in this broader kind of digital interaction touchpoint. You can see that these are all performing very poorly, and you can see the relative importance from a automatic SWOT analysis and then revenue at risk. So the first one, Brett, is transparency. This is, I know, one of your key ones. Improving transparency around insurance claims is a big one, right? And the analysis shows that this accounts for the majority of the responses. It's driving less trust compared to any other issues. And, it's concerns about accepting that the claim is valid. And we can see that there's a real challenge here to rebuild trust, to enhance customer support as well. And we can see, just to give you some of the examples, some challenges around being there day one, medications being covered, not finding out very quickly that they're not covered, or similar problems around chronic daily headaches and no solution in mind. Why did I sign up? So you can see people are almost getting this buyer's regret as soon as they purchase the health insurance. Tell me about this transparency. It's one of these big things that that you really champion as a CX pillar.
Is, yeah. This, I look at this under the concept that you trust. You mentioned it multiple times on there. And this, when we work with clients, this is a big part of, hard to quantify, but it's really important, this trust piece. Like, I trust my doctor. I trust my wife. Do I trust my insurance company? I'm not really sure. And if you can swing that pendulum over to, oh, you know what? I maybe didn't exactly get exactly what I wanted, but I understand what the process was. I understand what I was supposed to do, what the outcome was, why it was the way it was. You can, if that transparency is there, the communication is there, that trust swings over. And the opposite side is this black hole of, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know where my order is or what I need to do, and I can't get help for it. There's no trust there. Those people are ready to go. They're frustrated. So the more we can swing that over, which isn't really that hard to do, but the more we do it, the better it'll be.
I love that idea. And I think this idea of it's communication of expectations, right? People are happy to wait, Brett. I'm sure that's your experience, if you're properly communicated to, and those
Mhm.
expectations are managed. So the second one is all about prescription struggles, and this being a core challenge around trust, but also a positive financial risk for the companies. Again, acknowledging that as a challenge for consumers, it's driving 54% of responses, 1% less trust. And it's really centering around this idea of improving the customer service around that. And we'll see there's a big number attached to that, 190 billion, if this challenge is addressed. But you can see again just some of these issues. Sorry to pull up CSV, but this is a broad brush, by the way. But you can see that having to call numerous times around this idea of authorization and pending, but what does that actually mean? So again, thinking about going back to this idea of um, prescriptions and the healthcare companies obviously delivering that through preferred outlets for prescriptions as well. Just give me some perspective on that as well, Brent.
Yeah, absolutely. This the whole prior authorization process, the understanding of what's going on, why does it happen? There's ways that we can communicate to our patients in ways that they understand. Some want a phone call, some want to be text message, some want to be able to go on a portal, some want to, however they want to get this information. And if we can get it to them in real time and in a way that they can understand it, maybe it's a video instead of words, where they can really truly understand, here's the process you're about to go through. And then when you're going through the process, here's what step you're at and what we need to do next. And as you work through that, even if they have to wait, to your point, waiting is not the end of the world if you know things are going in the right direction. Waiting is the end of the world if you don't know if it's going to be next month or next year that you get your medication.
Very much so. And, the challenge is actually, the actual impact on the individual, right? If the medication's meant to arrive on Thursday and actually it's impacting your young children or whoever that happens to be, that actually creates a bigger experience that is actually impacting more than just one individual, right? So that's where this broader kind of patient journey comes in, right, Brett? So it's kind of thinking about the overall journey and experience.
Yeah. I'll also point out this comment is probably from 5 or 10 years ago. CVS has
Yeah.
significantly improved since then, so thanks.
Exactly. So I think, touching a lot of the themes centered around communication, effective communication during the claims delay can restore customer trust, preventing potential revenue loss. Again, this is more pointed. It's driving 6% less trust compared to the overall drivers. And again, it's the underpinning service that people are challenging, and people are actually then voting with their feet. So this is a kind of vote with your feet challenge. You can see waiting for 20, 30 minutes, transferred 6 times, almost 2 hours. First call 74 minutes, right? So how do we tackle this? This isn't something new, Brett. If you're to pull up, this challenge 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like where how does this actually get solved, and is it through the advancement of technology and AI and personalization that we can actually start to deal with some of this?
Absolutely. Yeah, if we in a lot of places we treat every call the exact same. So it could be coming from your number one client that spends $1 billion with you a year, or it could be coming from a person you've never met before. Every call is treated the same. And if we can bucket those and kind of triage them in a way that we can prioritize, and certain patients don't want to talk to anybody. They would love to have it just solved if I could, whether it's through a voice bot that we put into a hospital system, or whether it's through a texting back and forth and get their answer solved. I don't want to talk to people. They don't want to wait on hold. And there's so much technology available. Now, healthcare, understandably, very regulated. There's a lot of risk to how do you actually do this? You know it's the right thing to do, but how do you do it? And that's really where we spend a lot of our time, making sure the security's set up to be able to do this. It's high ROI activity for sure.
Yeah, is this the ultimate large language model? Because there's a question there from Jake, for example, that says, how do we equip our employees to rescue customers from pitfalls like missing prior authorization when ultimately the people in the front line may not have the answer, right? So this isn't the first time this question's been asked, by the way, from a patient who has the challenge in authorization. So is it learning from past experience where this can really have an impact, where, large language models or AI can really, help you navigate some of these challenges so that you can then almost navigate what a good routing for the customer experience is.
Yeah. This is where I think my mind was blown at the technology advancements here. Thinking about this personalization here. So before, maybe I know your name's Chris, and you've called me before, but now I can know where you live. I can know how many times you've called us, and I can take based on your past history. Here's probably what you're calling about now, and here's a problem you may have in the future, so I can solve that now. And if we bring in all this data into one place, you can head off what that question was about right there. You can empower your colleague to say, okay, I'm going to put out this fire that you have right now. And by the way, I'm going to prevent two fires I think you're going to have down the road. And patients love that. That is a level of service that not everybody can provide.
Yeah, and I think it's this idea of show me, you know me, right? That there's
Mm,
small acts of courtesy, that you're almost using the past interactions as empathy kind of primers, hey Brett,
yeah,
see that you've called in a couple of times, so you were on hold for 30 minutes, how
yeah.
can I best route you? Saw that you were asking around this, is this video helpful or FAQs? Is that where the future is, this idea of smarter personalization?
Yeah, I would say it's not where the future is, it's where the current state is. Like we can do this right now at a very high level. And when you do it, you look at it as okay, there's an expense up front. Then immediately you see a significant reduction in inbound calls. Your people answering the complaints are not answering low-level problems. They're actually operating at the top of their license. They're able to use their skills and their brain power to handle more complicated issues. And then that shows a real level of care. Then we're training them, instead of training them on here's how to push buttons, we're training them on empathy and how to interact with patients who are going through tough times. There's a lot more that you can do with that.
Super. So I think that kind of almost, moves the relationship from delivering service to almost like a trusted advisor status where you're actually providing value add, right, in those conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you call your insurance company and they say, I'm not really sure why your copay is that, have a nice day. Or if you call your insurance company and say, hey, Chris, looks like you've called us a couple of times already. I've noticed your copay right here. I'm going to get my supervisor on the phone and we're going to look into this for you. I'm not promising you I can fix it, but we're going to take time until you really understand. Like, there's a whole dynamic shift right there. And now instead of complaining my insurance company doesn't listen, it's, man, they're really trying for me. They care.
I love that. And I think that if you're to look into any health insurance company, they will probably have some version of a knowledge articles, right? Where the agents are frantically typing to find out the answers. So it feels like the anecdote for that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Because you can even with ambient AI, instead of even typing in notes, you can during the conversation, it can pop up on the screen. It looks like you and Chris are talking about copays. Here's what his copay will be. Here's a copay way to reduce his copay. There's a lot of interactions tools that we have right now that when you utilize them are amazing.
And we're about to hear how you can get started very shortly, but let's stick with insight number 4. So customer service. So let's dig into this. So this is, some positive experiences, but customer service. We talked about support, the moment of truth. You don't wake up thinking, geez, I'm going to phone my insurance company this morning, I want to start the day with that phone call. But when you do, this seems to be empathy, acting on feedback. Is it pretty much what we've discussed there in terms of the core challenge?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it seems that, unfortunately, out of the 17,000 reviews, it seems that the actual benchmark for good is quite low because, as you can see here, people are calling out some fairly basic customer service interactions that go wrong, right? You can obviously imagine that it's not all customer service fault, right? You're getting very emotionally charged people phoning in with, going through the challenge of potentially life altering challenges. and
Yeah.
then faced with an interaction. So how do you educate the customer as well, in terms of thinking about, owning the problem, like both
Yeah.
sides owning part of the challenge.
Yeah. If you look at this example, I mean, the patient, understandably, they look at the rep as, how could you not solve my problem? You didn't care. When we work with clients, we're working with this pretty large insurance company, and we looked at that and they're like, oh, our reps, we got a problem with training. We need to get them all trained up. And you look at it, and really only about 5% are actually reps that don't care. They shouldn't be a part of your company. This is not in the right job. Okay, but 95% do care. And those that do care, why are they projecting to the patient that they don't? It's because they don't have the information that they need when they need it. They don't have the ability to solve a problem without multiple layers to get that problem solved. They don't have fast communication. And we haven't armed them with those kind of resources and empowerment to be able to take care of that. So we train them on how to do this big, complicated system, but really to solve the root problem. So this is, we need to empower them and give them the voice to be able to take care of the patient.
And I think, just to summarize what I'm hearing, Brett, is this idea of downstream challenges, right? So these are manifesting challenges around people, process, and technology, right? So, the whole time's a result of ineffectual routing, or, challenges printing off policy on a website.
Yeah.
Is it that, as a CX professional, do you have to follow the breadcrumbs, to actually then go higher from a strategic perspective to kind of work out some of these big challenges?
Yeah. And that, honestly, I feel like that's a big part of my job. People will come to me and like, "Hey, this is our problem," and then we'll spend a few weeks going through it. Say that it's not really your problem. Like that is a symptom of this actual problem over here. And then when you solve the actual problem, what's amazing is this symptom is solved, and the symptom is solved, and the symptom is solved that you didn't even know was all tied into this other original problem.
Super. And not to, I suppose, not to kind of spend the whole session going through each slide, but this is just kind of, urgent help requests in the moment of need, where people in the example here are experiencing real challenges around mental health, but being referred to challenges that aren't available, so that's, I suppose, good examples. Digital challenges, poorly functioning websites. You can see that, ours on hold website doesn't work. So there seems that the digital is deflecting onto the calls, right? So how do you balance solving this omni challenge? You said you want to meet the customer, on text. People don't want to be spoken to, but if you don't provide the basics on the website, you're almost inviting people to phone, right? That's part of the challenge here.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a balance of, yes, the technology exists, but there's a cost that goes with the technology. And what's interesting about a lot of corporate budgets, right now we're in July, and probably your budget's already spent for IT this year, and it's probably already allocated at least halfway through next year. The reality is 2 months from now, you're going to discover this technology that's amazing, that solves all your problems, but all your money is spent. I think this is where taking a partner in this and making sure that you're future proofing your decisions instead of putting in little band-aids that fix um, the small problems, really investing in fixing the big solution, digital and phone, tying it all together.
Super. And not to go back to your, speedboat on the loop, but I think the whole idea here is, experimentation, Brett. Is that how people ultimately dip their toe into this whole AI, new way of going about to solve these challenges, right? Just give us your perspective on
Yeah.
experimentation.
Yeah. This is how the conversations go. Somebody will reach out and say, "Hey, I saw you did this really cool thing. I'd like to learn more about it." Then they learn more about it and say, "Oh, you can also do this and this and this and this and this." Like, "Oh, we could do all these different things." And then you start involving all of these different people and all these different ideas, and then then we'll scale it back down. What's the thing that we're actually going to go do? And then once you do that thing and you realize, okay, I spent 500,000, but I saved 1 million. This is amazing. Now we go to the second one, the third one. You kind of build that trust. I think having somebody that can work in the regulatory environment that we're in, because that's a big part of it. How do you do this safely and securely? And if you can do those two things, like take all of the CX program, make it better while doing it safely and without risk, so much upside.
Yeah. And I suppose what's your perspective then on the readiness of healthcare insurance companies to embrace AI? And is the best place then to start with the experimentation as you've described it?
Yeah, I would say experimentation is an interesting word because a lot of people say that I want to experiment with AI, but not so much in healthcare. In healthcare, you want to have something that actually works. You don't want to be the testing board. If it's a Domino's pizza, you can try something. If it messes up your pizza, no big deal. You don't want to do that with medication. So we do take tried and true processes that work, and a lot of them come from different industries and work in healthcare. It's a similar concept. And then once you invest in these right areas and do it the right way, this experiment becomes a reality and you see it almost immediately, improving your NPS, improving OSAT, improving client retention, reducing inbound calls. And the ROI will be there for it.
Super. And I suppose just for our listeners, this idea of automatic actions where you can then start to pick off some of these challenges, right? Addressing the poorly functioning website, you can then, I suppose, t-shirt size, what is the impact and the prioritization of that? I suppose, we talked about the top seven, but let's look at the granularity of these issues. You can see that there's big challenges, insurance rep communication challenges, right through to doctor wait time and nurses calls. So it seems to be a really complex area for CX professionals to jump in, order delays and shipping, it, it seems, where's a good place to start, Brett? This seems to be quite a big challenge, even if we're to look at the complaints process and transferring, you can see some of these really irate customers.
Yeah. If I'm somebody watching this and you've all got dashboards, reports like this, and you look down that list on the side there and you see like 20 different items, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, well, there's even more, right? 50 different items. That 50 different solutions, one for each item. The reality is you probably only need two or three that'll actually tie into the bulk of these. And by the way, all of those have a number, but not all of them really matter as much. So, for example, if I get a surprise bill and my copay was $10,000, that matters a lot to me. If I have to wait on the phone 35 seconds instead of 30 seconds, it's not the end of the world, right? So there's degrees of what's important. So we generally do like like a 4-week discovery where we go through all of these that you put here really, really well, by the way. That's how we met, because I think this is fantastic. This is the best one that I've seen to do this. So you put all this together, you say, okay, these are all the things we're going to impact. And then you kind of work backward and you realize, oh, these are the three things you can invest in that are going to impact all of these things.
I love that idea. And this is almost like a strategic view, right? Where you can start to see, God love the 9%, or the 200 people who have voted for a positive experience. But you can see some of these big strategic buckets that, as you say, it's maybe better to kind of focus on two or three. Going to just pause for a second and kind of, as you've maybe alluded to, this idea of maybe focusing on just a small number of those challenges. So if we were to kind of go back to just the summary slide, I've picked transparency because it was one of your key approaches, prescription challenges, and then communication. And you can see, this is the sort of insights that you'll be able to derive. Obviously, CX professionals get caught up on the manual analysis. So this idea of getting speed to insight. Could you just give us like how you would then think about at a super high level, say the 5 areas for CX to target? I'm thinking convenience, I'm thinking personalization, and some of those areas. Brett, if you want to think through and
Yeah,
describe those.
yeah, absolutely. Those are the 5 areas that generally a good CX program is going to address: the convenience, quality, support, personalization, and communication. And if you look back at all those different symptoms and you go back to what are the problems, the root cause generally comes from convenience. I don't have the digital, I can't go to the website, the app doesn't work, I call and nobody answers, the quality. It wasn't what I expected, it was wrong. The support when there's a problem, can I get my solution? Personalization, do you actually know me and care about me? And then communication, do I have a way to talk to you? You have a way to communicate with me, so we're transparent on everything. It's not really that complicated to understand it. And then it's way more work to figure out how do you solve it inside of the legacy systems that we have and all the different tools that we use.
Yeah, so it feels that the solutions, or certainly the answers, are broadly known, or seem simplistic in description, but actually the implementation is where the rubber hits the road here. That it's actually quite complex, and getting strategic insight and advice in this area is kind of key. Would you obviously, that's an important area as you speak to executives daily and weekly, Brett.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, understandably, if you're a CEO, that's generally who we work with, CEOs and CTOs and CXOs, and they have a business, they're running a business, and they don't necessarily know all the different things that are out there and how does it apply to that. So that partnership is key. Right? And I think as you're thinking about that, not just what can you do for this business, but what are your competitors doing? Because a lot of people think, all right, well, we're good. So we were good last year, probably be good next year. That's great, except for that speedboat's coming that's about to be great that you didn't see coming. And all of a sudden you're wondering, why are my clients leaving me? And why do the customers not re-up with us? And it's a lot of eye-opening moments, that's for sure.
It's a great point, and I think this is where digital technology provides kind of the disruption. Visit healthcare is in those kind of moment of, I'm sure, transformation has been maybe an overused word within healthcare insurance, but it feels there's the opportunity for people who are starting with a blank sheet, with none of these legacy systems, in the same way banking is being disrupted by Monzo and the Revoluts and all the rest. Can you see this happening within healthcare, or are those barrier to entry so big? Do you almost see a spin-off from one of the big healthcare companies to start to really properly tackle this from a digital consumer first approach?
Oh, it can definitely be done, and we're doing it now. Like you could build a whole system. You could build your own PBM, all fully integrated with AI right up from the front. You can build it less than a year and way less than you think it would be. Now, that's like a whole PBM. You could build your own pharmacy system that ties into providers. You could build your own insurance. There's so many things you can do that maybe would have taken 5 years down the road in the past. You can do significantly faster and significantly cheaper. That's where the technology is really booming in some of these companies that are growing and looking for that competitive advantage.
And it sounds like it's a mind shift approach here, right? So thinking about old world, big cruise ship, new world, speedboats. Take us through some of those shifts. I'm hearing this kind of reactive to proactive as an example. So maybe just talk us through your perspective on that, Brett.
Yeah, reactive to proactive is a very good one. So if we put out fires, solve problems, that's what we invest in, right? If you did a survey right now, who has a complaint department, who has an escalations department? Yep, yep, yep. Who has a proactive solutions department? Who's heading off these problems ahead of time? There's not as many. And as we shift to that, it's significant. It's instead of like putting out the bucket because the roof is leaking and get a bigger bucket, or do I go up and just fix the roof? And that's a lot of what we spend time on is fixing some roofs. I think the other shift on here, maybe one that we didn't mention there, is the cultural shift of it. So you have the mindset and you have the behavior and then you have the actions. So you know the actions you need to do, here's the behaviors you need to do. The reality is if your mindset isn't there, if you're in the mindset of, this is how we've always done things, this is how we'll always do them, or if you're in the mindset of this isn't my problem, it's an industry problem, or it's whatever else. If your mindset shifts to, oh, actually, if we embrace this technology, it is what our clients want, and it is what our customers want, and it is what our competitors aren't doing. If we embrace that, then your behaviors change, and then your outcomes definitely change significantly faster.
Superb. And I think we give this as a bonus early in our session where we talked about simple personalization, the hyper personalization. That would certainly be on your top three, right?
It is a very unique one that some companies are embracing, and it's amazingly powerful. It's like you go to a restaurant, a cafeteria style, right? And here's your options. You got 10 different things, you can pick one, or you have a menu. Or you have the chef coming out and saying, I know this is what you traditionally like. I prepared this dish for you. I think you'll like it. This level of personalization and care, it's unheard of in healthcare. Like, we think if you send an email and it has "Hi Brett" in the first name, that's personalization. Like, that's not,
Yeah.
but there's so much potential for that.
Yeah, it feels a kind of fertile space. And I think this kind of naturally leads us on to this idea of the gift that was promised at the start of the session. So thank you so much for everyone who's taken their time to join today's session. You will get a free revenue at risk report where we'll benchmark your health insurance company with the Human Experience Trust Index, and Brett will give some commentary on that, so you'll get unique perspectives as a one-to-one follow-up as well. So if you want to take advantage of that, just let us know in the poll. So I'll leave that open for a couple of minutes. And I suppose, Brett, now just to get your final reflections on the challenge and opportunity for CX professionals within this area. What's your hopes for the how we can meet some of the challenges that we've chatted through today?
So one of the big challenges, and my hope, big challenge is seeing CX as this expense line. And my hope is seeing it as a profit center. You can shift with small tweaks. And this is why everybody should just take on this free gift. The free gift is how we met. Because then you see, like, how do I quantify the money that CX is costing me or I could earn from doing it right? And when you turn that into a financial, that's where the budget comes from. That's where the leadership buy-in comes from. That is a missing link in so many different CX programs, is how do you quantify it? I think when we turn it into a profitable, which it is, small investments have huge rewards. That's where we'll really take off CX to the next level in healthcare.
Superb. And I think the opportunity here, Forrester released their total experience metrics for healthcare, seemed really challenging right across the board. All healthcare insurance companies hit, and I think there's a broader decline within CX in the US market in general. So it feels that the time is now for CX professionals, right? Raising the bar, communicating in a different way through this language of revenue at risk seems a big opportunity, Brett.
Totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah, you said it exactly right. It is a huge opportunity and very appreciative for this time to be able to talk through this.
Superb. Well, look, nearly 65%, 70% have taken up the gifts. So you're all very, very welcome. We'll be in touch in the coming days. But all I have to do is to thank our wonderful guest, Brett. Brett, thank you so much. Your decades of experience boiled into 45 minutes of reflections and core insights. Just to summarize, Brett provided the five pillars of CX, how you can really change your mindset, and also those three kind of mindset shifts, thinking about going from personalization to hyper personalization, thinking about a more proactive approach from customer interaction, understanding your customer to shifting to customer interactions, and then this idea of reactive to proactive. So, Brett, thank you so, so much. Looking forward to continuing the conversations, everything in the coming days. And thanks for everyone who submitted questions as well. Appreciate your time. Cheers now. Excellent. Bye bye.
Thank you.